with Mr. Ashok Shuta, you started Happiest Minds. And I got to know that you guys started at House. What was the day one of Happiest Minds?
Ashok's message or guidance to all of us to focus the company around the theme of happiness. That conversation and that initial interaction is what has built the company, because
you guys were the fastest growing Indian IT company. In less than a decade, you were able to touch 100 million.
Yes. Some days you just come back and sit and say, man, I did 20 meetings this week and we not got to a proposal. But I think the key is to not give up.
Do you think the old way of running, IT services companies, like, should they change or is it dead? Or, a lot of talks in the industry, like, is Indian IT crumbling?
I think we need to be proactive about adopting it.
Are you venturing into, generative AI or agentic AI startup and companies? Very interesting, like a company without a CEO, like, for what was going on?
They say 4 heads is better than 1, right?
Is customers asking for agentic AI services? How excited are you about agentic AI?
I think it's...
Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Hot Seat. I'm your friendly AI human, Amit Rajanayak. Today we have a very special guest with us. He's the CEO and co-chair of the mindful IT company, the Happiest Minds, Joseph Anantharaju. Welcome to AM Media House. How are you doing?
Good. How are you doing, Raj?
Amazing. So can you just tell us, like, how is your day looking like? I heard, like, you fly once in 2 months here in India and you have a jam-packed schedule.
So, I try to optimize my time whenever I come down.
Yeah.
One of the main, we are in the people business.
Correct.
And the more you interact with people, you get to understand them better, you build better bonds. And so I try to pack my schedule as much as possible.
Uh-huh.
The minute I land, I spend a couple of hours with my mom in the morning.
Wow.
I go home because my parents live out here.
Got it.
And then I do a run that freshens me up.
Got it.
And by 8:30, I'm in office and I start meetings at 9, go till 5 or 6.
Mm-hmm.
And that keeps repeating every day, right?
Got it.
And I try to mix up group meetings with individual one-on-ones, and then obviously some reviews and senior leadership meetings. And before you know it, it's time to fly back.
Wow. Like, and what is your, like, every day when you wake up, what is that one thing or a practice that you do that keeps you grounded or keeps you aligned with all of your plans? And what is that mantra you follow? Like,
so I would say 2 things. One is more from a physical perspective. I make sure I get some exercise every day, whether it's running or just doing some light weights and things like that, and it helps you reset. And the other thing is, in the morning, I kind of lay out 2 or 3 things that I need to get done for the day.
Got it.
And I have to do the top priority items, because there are always multiple things to do. Once I've done both of these, I feel like I'm ready and prepared for the day. And the day starts with, it's a global world now. So you start with calls in the morning, and you'll finish with calls in the night. And that's part of life.
Amazing. With Mr. Ashok Shuta, you started Happiest Minds. So, and I got to know that you guys started at House. Like, like, I know a lot of entrepreneurs are watching right now, and the experience that we're talking about, right? So when you look back, what were some of the initial things that you guys did? I mean, the market was already crowded, a lot of Indian IT services, and you've been part of that industry already. What was that moment for you guys, when you sat in House? How did the meeting look like? What was the day one of Happiest Minds? If you can share with the viewers, that would be great.
I joined the first meeting virtually because I was in US.
Okay.
And I resigned from Mindtree, and my last day was 5th on Friday.
Got
and
it.
8th, I had started off with Happiest Minds.
Yeah.
And so the other co-founders were sitting with Ashok, and we got into the 2 things that we wanted to discuss, right, which still is the core of the company. One is the business aspect of it, being a digital native, digital focused company. And we talked a little bit about what that would entail.
Yeah.
And that's where, the initial areas that we focused on, we decided around social, cloud, analytics, and mobile. And the other thing was, Ashok's message or guidance to all of us to focus the company around the theme of happiness and what it would mean at a very high level,
Yeah.
And so that conversation and that initial interaction is what has built the company, because even today, we are, as you said, a mindful IT company, and happiness is the central theme of the company and people-centric culture. And we still are a digital native company. 96% of our revenues come from digital. And the other thing I just wanted to share, since you said that there are other entrepreneurs would be sitting out there.
Yeah.
See, I was not, till then I'd worked in an office, right? And the first time there was no office to go to. I woke up in the morning and I was just wondering, where do I go? And, now I think all of us have got used to working from home.
Yeah.
Those days, I'd never worked from home, not a single day. And so I said, I need to get out and sit in a place where I can focus. I went to the local library.
Got it.
And I made that my office for 2 or 3 months till we kind of figured things out and we got our own office. But that was a very interesting experience,
Got it. And do you recall your first few deals that you made and, kept the ball rolling? I know that first initial deals are very interesting. So when you're starting a company versus working in an organization, two different worlds. The clients or partners or the experience that you have versus when you're starting out, what was that confidence that initial few partners or customers decided, okay, this is the company that we want to partner, and you guys started as a digital first company as well, and we were right in the time. So I just want to understand, how was that entire deal momentum happening in the initial days?
Absolutely. So I think, I really like the focus you put on the digital first, because I believe that really helped us to acquire our customers. Because otherwise, even in 2011, today it's even more crowded, but in 2011 itself, the IT service space was a crowded space with a lot of companies. So how do you go and differentiate? One is, you can say I have the best people, but it's difficult to, you can prove it once you're given an opportunity. But once you can show a differentiation through the focus that you have and the value that you would bring, it makes the conversation less difficult. It's always difficult when you're a small company and you're starting up, right? Because you don't have anything to showcase, right? The first few deals, therefore, as you rightly pointed, are very important. And for us, luckily, the good work we had done and some of the relationships we had built earlier helped us. So by the time we had launched the company, we already had our first customer. And this was a customer that had worked with us a couple of times past in Aztecsoft and in Mindtree. He knew our chief operating officer, Nanda, really well. He knew Ashok very well. And I had done the initial meetings at Aztecsoft when we got the deal with him. So that's sort of got us started off. And I still clearly remember, the first purchase order that we got. It is still framed in the office. And then I remember Ashok came down immediately after that. And using Ashok's contacts, reached out to a few customer of his past connects. I've reached out to a few of my connects. But the first 2 months, we were doing these meetings, meeting with people, and they're also trying to figure out, how do I fit in a company that's really small. And then we got our second deal with a company that was trying to move from being a contact center into an AI-driven. And they were very early, actually. They're trying to automate the whole contact center industry, and they were building a platform. So we kind of started working with them. And then the third deal was, really made a huge difference to us. This is a company in the learning space, and that scaled up to a $6 million account in 2 years, and became, one of the foundations of the company for the first 5 years. And once you get to around 15-20 million, you have a few customers, you have case studies, you have the critical mass, and then growth is less difficult. I'll never say it's easy, right?
So that initial thing was very important.
But there's so many meetings we did, and people would say, we really like you, but we already have somebody, or we want to do it internally. And some days you just come back and sit and say, man, I did 20 meetings this week and we not got to a proposal. But I think the key is to not give up. Right? You got to just keep persisting, because you just need those few breaks, and then the momentum starts building.
And also, in that interesting journey, I want to understand, was there any Frugal or Agile or say Jugaad thing that you guys did, some experience that you can recall of, where the deal was pulled off, something maybe in the prototype stage you needed some more investment, but the allocation was not there, but you had to deliver. But once you show the prototype, then only you got the complete deal sanctioned.
Sure.
So is there any experience Frugal or Jugaad that you guys did, which kind of got you some big deals?
So I'll share 2-3 experiences. One is more on the POC thing that you referred to, and the other one is frugality, right? In how we spent money. I still remember for that deal, the company in the contact center space, they wanted to see, they gave a problem statement and they wanted to see a POC, and it was in a new technology which,
Correct.
people hadn't worked. So the 3-4 of them, they were already on a project.
Wow.
They used to sit in the evenings and they learned this technology and built a mock-up all in 2 weeks and sent it across. This was for a customer in Australia, one of the customers of this company, and they were able to do it there in the telecommunication space. They're able to do it in 2 weeks, and I think that's the kind of spirit we engendered, saying that, hey, it's, people have to multitask, and we're all together, right? So we just have to come together, and I think that kind of culture sustained, as we continued growing. The other thing I want to talk about is, on the expenses front, again, you got to be very careful. I still remember, whenever I had to travel, I'd sit in the night at 10 or 11, searching multiple websites to see where is the cheapest option you'll get on the flight, even if there's, a little bit more of a layover, because I'm very comfortable working in airports and on planes, right? Okay. And hotel rooms also, you're looking at, Got it. My wife used to tell me, like, is this really worth your time spending 1 hour to save maybe $50 or $60? But I think it's the mentality, right? I remember some of my colleagues, when they used to travel, they'd land up sharing a room, right? And I've done that also with my CTO. We just share a room, and we know each other quite well. We're very comfortable, and if it any saving helps. But most importantly, it's the mindset that you create by doing this, right? The $50 may not mean as much, but you'll start using it in other areas also, and you'll start saving 1,000, maybe 10,000. Say in the infrastructure space, we'll see how to optimize again. It's the mindset that's most important.
Very, very rightly put. I think that mindfulness in almost everything that you do. So I'll just come to that. Like, you have something called a SMILE. So you say sharing, mindfulness, integrity, learning, excellence, and excellence.
And social.
Yeah. So how did that clarity came of that SMILE when you started a business? Like, I don't see that kind of a theme. They have different formats, but for Happiest Minds, why did you say smiles? Like, why? Yeah.
So, I'll first share how we arrived at this.
Okay,
right?
Okay.
So we, once we started the company, within a month, we wanted to make sure that we had the foundation for the company, which we believe is the mission, vision, and values, because that's what a company lives by, right?
Yeah.
A mission shows you, it's like a North Star, right?
Star.
It shows you which direction the company is going.
Yeah.
Very rarely do you change the mission of a company unless the fundamental business and culture has changed.
Yeah.
Vision is the measurable goals that you set for yourself, and values is what you live by every day. And we wanted to make sure that we get this right and we get it early.
Correct.
But we also wanted to make sure that it's a group exercise and everybody participates. So for a couple of Saturdays, we got the entire whole was on board already into the boardroom, the conference room, and we just started ideating. So the first meeting was all about getting a lot of ideas. And one of the first employees that we had was a happiness evangelist, Sharon, right? And so she kind of, I would say, emceed this whole session. And so we got ideas for the mission, the vision, and the values, multiple ideas. She curated it. The next session, we agreed on the mission first, and we got to vision. We said what could be the thing, and the values was really interesting. We looked at multiple facets of what it means to be a people-centric company and to align with happiness. And that's how we came up with these 6 values, and the order in which we put them allowed us to get smiles, which reflects, when you're happy, you smile. Right?
Yeah.
So we were able to align it into smiles. And the other thing we kind of agreed on that day is that all the milestones would be called smilestones. So the 100th customer or your 10th anniversary is my milestone. 100th customer is the company's milestone. So it's kind of lent itself really well, right, from mission, vision, values, and what happens on an ongoing basis.
Amazing. And talking about milestones, right? Pretty impressive. Like for like you guys were the fastest growing Indian IT company. Like in I think in less than a decade, you were able to touch 100 million in revenue and all of that. Then also you guys were the, like, how do I put this? Like the youngest startup to also go for an IPO started by an older entrepreneur who was like 77-year-old. That also kind of was setting the mindset in the media and all of that. So that was in 2020 September, I believe.
Yeah.
And the subscription was almost 155, and the bid was almost say 3.5 billion totaling. Mad IPO was crazy, and so what was happening in that particular phase? I mean, all of this growth, and we spoke about your milestones. The foundation was set. When you went for IPO, what changed? Did Mindtree change after going for IPO, or was it the same philosophy? Did something change there? Like,
Uh,
Yeah.
That whole phase was a very interesting phase
Got
because we had decided in November that we would do the
Yeah.
IPO. And
Yeah.
so we had our red herring prospectus, we had met with the investment bankers, all of that had got aligned. And our red herring prospect was almost ready
Got
in March.
Yeah.
And then COVID happened, right? So,
Damn, yeah.
so we took a step back and said, what do we
Yeah.
do? And I still remember, Ashok's guidance.
Yeah.
Obviously we deliberated a fair bit, and his view was that the fundamental basics of the company, the value of the company still remains the same.
Yeah.
What can vary is based on market conditions. Today, you could get a little less or maybe a little bit more, but in the long term, the value is going to remain the same. The market is going to value the right way. And I think the right thing to do is to continue, because we made all of these efforts.
Wow.
Internally also, we had kind of set the expectation. And in a way, going IPO is moving from adolescence into your youth, right?
Got it.
Getting past your teenage years. And I think we want to get over that. Once we were able to, it was a very interesting 2 months, because it was the first virtual or remote IPO that took
Yeah.
place. All our interactions with the bankers and the investors were all virtual. So I'd sit up in the night, start at 9 and go till 4. And, the people who are in India,
Yeah.
they'd sit up the whole day and
Yeah.
we just talk to people, but all to a good ending, right?
Yeah.
As you rightly pointed, it was one of the most successful IPOs
Yeah.
in the Indian stock market so far. And what it did for us is that I think the success that we had kind of gave us another differentiator. So when customers started looking at us, employees started looking at us, partners started looking at us, the success which we had became much more apparent, because it was public and it was something that the market had valued.
Yeah.
And I think that's where we started getting a little bit more leverage in terms of the conversation that we were having, and and the success that we were getting. What it also allowed us to do is to start off on our next phase of our journey, because one of the core elements of the initial vision that we had set for the company was to do an IPO. And the reason was that you had investors who had trusted us, you had employees who had trusted us.
Yeah.
And when we went IPO,
Yeah.
each and every employee in the company had some stock options. We made
yeah.
sure, right, on we filed sometime towards the end of March, and so a month before that we had to stop issuing shares. So we did a mad rush for 2 months and made sure that we sent out mails and got people to sign off on their ESOP thing. So it was a way of recognizing what people had contributed, and make sure that the investors got their returns because they had trusted us and invested money. So once we were done with that, we had to look at what is the next phase of the company.
Yeah.
And that's where we did the next version of the company vision, and we came up with the $1 billion goal by 2031. So I think the IPO allowed us to start thinking about the next stage of the company.
Got it. I'm sure like the stakeholders are happy and with the kind of growth you guys have. And I think post IPO you were somewhere around 20 to 25% is what you were targeting, right? The growth rate.
Yes.
Yeah, that's pretty impressive. So let's come to the reality, the present day Indian IT scene, right? I'm like fascinated because I think the revenue is not picking up, it's dropping, attrition is all-time high in most of the larger Indian IT companies. So how do you position Happiest Minds, like, in this turmoil, plus economic turmoil also is happening. All of this uncertainties and tariff and all of this also playing in the background, and now even the war scenario kind of a thing also is happening. So among all this uncertainty, right? So how do you how are you guys positioning Happiest Minds compared to other Indian IT, and what advantages you guys have versus them? Like,
Sure.
Yeah.
See, I think the focus on digital is still
got it.
resonating very well with
Yeah.
the market, and I think saying that you're just focused on this space allows us to carve out a small niche. Though all of the other companies have got into the digital space,
Got
but
it.
their revenues would be 40 to 60% maybe,
Correct.
and I think that allows us to build, and we've already built deeper capabilities in some of the core foundational digital technologies.
Yeah.
And our whole CTO office that keeps looking at newer technologies
Yeah.
and incubating and building them allows us to continue differentiating, being a little ahead.
Yeah.
Like for instance, on GenAI,
Yeah.
we had used some of the LLMs 3-4 years before OpenAI came out. So we had
Yeah.
some experience on LLMs but again,
Got
the
it.
pace at which OpenAI took off did take, I think took everybody by surprise.
Everybody, yeah.
You knew that it's a transformative technology, but that it will get adopted so rapidly
Yeah.
was a little surprising. And that's where, we decided to create GBS, a separate business unit,
Correct.
because we felt that it's hugely transformative and it can have a major impact on the company. We also did the verticalization because we believe that just being a digital native is not sufficient, but we need to apply it to each of the verticals. So till I would say 2020, 2021, we were more of a technology-driven GTM company. But then we started, we were already working with quite a few verticals. We had business analysts, domain experts. That's when we decided to get into more of, to verticalize and bring in IG heads and make sure that the digital capabilities that we have started manifesting in very domain-oriented offerings. So bringing
Wow.
domain and digital together. And so that's the differentiation that we are taking into market now, that we have digital depth and we have domain depth in a few areas.
Mhm.
And those are the areas that we focus on. So each of the verticals, we've kind of figured out what are the areas where we have deep expertise and there is a white space or a pain point. And that's the differentiation we're taking in. And I think, for many of our prospects or customers, the whole focus on people and happiness still resonates, because if you look at the world, there's so many
Yeah.
challenges
Yeah.
and people are going through so much of stress. So when you talk about this uplifting
Yeah.
message, they also realize that it has an impact on the people and how they would, positive impact,
Correct.
and how they would, interact with their customers.
Yeah.
And that has been, it's surprising how
Yeah.
15 years later it still resonates, and to the
yeah.
extent that it resonates.
Yeah, it's amazing. So I just want to understand, like, I was talking to a lot of people and I said I'm interviewing you, and they were like, okay, this person is like product thinking first person, but majority of the IT is still the mindset of platform. So what can you help me understand, like, what is the difference between a product mindset and a platform mindset versus a service oriented thing, which is kind of deteriorating with GCCs. I'll come to that later part. There's also a lot of uncertainties with GCCs getting set up here. Previously they would need IT services help, but now they have their IPs and they're coming here and they're setting up their own thing. So what changes you see in the entire, I mean, it's a lot of question, I understand, but from a product thinking perspective, like, you have been in that space for a very long time, and you clearly mentioned like 96% is digitally driven.
Yeah.
Most of the revenue comes from there. I just want to understand, number one, from that 96%, how much of this is from the generative AI business unit that you are seeing at this particular time? If you could share some insight.
Sure.
I know it's early or too early, I'm not sure, but what kind of market, how is it reacting after you set up I think late 2023 is when you set up that business unit. So I want to understand from then till now, how much has it contributed to that 96% of digital revenue besides your other two business unit there?
Sure.
Yeah.
So if you look at between product and platform,
yeah,
some of the difference that I see, if you look at a product, you're developing it for
Correct.
a certain set of customers.
Yeah.
It tends to be limited as opposed to a platform, right? And the the way you go about developing it in terms of scale, non-functional, is very different from a platform, because you'll sell it to each customer, and the
Correct.
customer has, let's say, 50,000, 100,000
Yeah.
users. They can manage their own security as well once you sell it to them. Obviously, you have to make sure the product is secure.
Correct.
And your ability to customize
Yeah.
is more in a product, right? Once you sell it to the customer, either you can do through professional services, or you can, in early stages, you can actually customize the product for the customer. But the minute you start doing platform, you're going to have the same. And typically it has to be based on open standards, right? And it should be an open architecture, and your ability to customize it for each customer is limited out here, because you're one platform.
Yeah.
Right? Typically, it'll have to be multi-tenanted, right?
Correct.
As all you're doing is you're taking a product and you're hosting it and providing it to your customer. And quite a few customers did that in the initial days and called it SaaS or a platform.
Got it.
Your most important is your non-functional requirements or your non-functional features have to be really strong. You have to really make sure that it's solid in terms of performance, in terms of scalability. You'll have to take ownership for the security, and you're responsible for evolving the platform as and when the underlying technologies change. It's all your responsibility now. So you have a much larger responsibility, and you've got to look at many more aspects than you would if it was a product. Now, coming to GCCs, the way I'd like to look at it, again, you rightly pointed out that my DNA in the IT space is from the product engineering services space. That's what I started off my career with. And see, the area that we initially focused on, that I focused on, was I was owning the product engineering services business unit. And if you look at the Indian, what was then called in the captives, which is now called GCCs. It's called GCCs now. You keep evolving your terminology. The initial set of GCCs or captives were in two areas, industrial and in the high-tech space.
Correct.
So if you look at Microsoft, Cisco, all of them came in the late 90s, early 2000. Your Honeywell, ABB and all were there. From serving the local market, they started also owning up some of the products and providing engineering services to their headquarters. And these are the two areas that we focused on, right? Because through IoT, we got into industrial, and through product engineering services, we're working with high-tech. So we worked with GCs right from our initial days, like the contact center company that I talked about. We're working with your GCC out here. And so we had some experience working with them. And in the initial days, the 2015, 16, there was a period when attrition went up a little bit. We did an analysis to see if we're losing disproportionate to GCCs, and what we realized is that wasn't the case. We were losing some people, no doubt, right? And we also learned how to work with them. And I feel that it is a given that you'll have more companies coming out here, because there is talent out here, there is some pressure at home, and we need to innovate much faster now. Unlike earlier, the technology adoption cycles have really accelerated now, right? So you need that power, the bandwidth, and so they will come out here. I believe that if you can figure out with the GCCs what is core and not core, right? What is the current pain point that specific companies is facing, right? Or which is strategic, or which is really keeping them up. Or if you can look at what are the areas that they are not strong in, there are areas that you can actually engage with them, but it takes a little bit more study and a little bit more effort. Initially, you may have to get into an engagement where you get started to just learn about the company. But once you get started, I think you've got to take a more strategic view and look at, on 3 or 4 of these dimensions, how do you engage in a more strategic manner? So last year we did around $1.6 million, approximately 1.5 or so. This year we're hoping to kind of triple it to $5 million.
Wow.
Right? But I see 2 advantages from this. Apart from the direct revenue that is providing, which I think will continue scaling, because these things typically have a little bit more hockey stick, because I think last year most companies were kind of looking at, what does this mean to our business, right?
Got it.
And therefore a lot of POCs, pilots, taking it to customers, measuring the impact. And we're seeing more and more of larger projects being initiated now. So I think the revenue part, that's why you're seeing it's going to increase. But the other 2 advantages, apart from revenue, that I'm seeing is, one is it's helping us differentiate ourselves. We're one of the very few companies that has generative AI as a separate business unit. And what it allows that business to do is to take independent decisions on investments with accountability for revenues, and they're able to build deeper capabilities, build a team that kind of comes together because they understand it's a business unit. There's larger responsibilities.
Yeah.
They need to hit their revenue goals,
Yeah.
hit their break even.
Yeah.
So it kind of brings them together.
Yeah.
And the second is it allows us to take generative AI as a tip of the arrow service in some cases.
Got
Right?
it.
You get in, prove yourself, and then there are larger opportunities out there. So I'm really excited for the potential
Wow.
and the impact that this business unit will have.
Amazing. So I think everything is. I mean, the setting up of the business unit also was showing that how fast you guys are adopting. So do you think the old way of running IT services companies, like should they change, or is it dead? Or a lot of talks in the industry, like, is Indian IT crumbling, and all of that. What is your thought on that?
I wouldn't say that it's dead or crumbling.
Got
There
it.
are challenges and opportunities, I
Correct.
must say. And I think whenever there is major inflections or changes in the market or trends, you have to adapt and
Absolutely.
adopt,
Yes.
right? And I think right now we're going through that phase, and I think the Indian IT industry will have to do a few things. One is, from a development standpoint, we have quite a few code automation tools, whether it's Cursor,
Correct.
Copilot, and there are
Yes.
a few others that are coming up. And you have to figure out what is the right one for each customer.
Yeah.
I think we need to be proactive about adopting it.
Wow.
Right. Otherwise, the customer is going to either do it themselves, do it with somebody else.
Yeah.
Right. It may have impact as of today, but doing it will give you long-term benefits. And the other thing I'm noticing is, while we're on this topic, is that customers are really not looking at, many of them, I can't say that all of them, they're not looking at, hey, do I reduce the team by 20%? Do I reduce my budgets by 20%? The budgets are remaining the same. They want to get more done
Wow.
at a faster pace. So I think adopting these tools will only help you. The other thing I think the industry will need to do is to figure out how do you get people to skill, multi-skill, and upskill much faster now. You got to do your competency mapping, skill mapping, and figure out who is the right fit for which. Because as I said, the pace of technology change is very fast. Just look at
Yeah.
Gen AI, how quickly it was
changing,
adopted.
yeah.
Or if you look at some of the newer technologies, whether it's
Yeah.
Node.js and other things, which it started getting more.
Yeah.
They've been around for some time, but started getting adopted around the late 2010s.
Yeah.
And now you look at it, your front ends, they all have a React or whatever.
Yeah.
And Angular was the initial one. React came in within one and a half years. Every customer wanted to have a React front end. Right?
Yeah.
So, again, if you look at IoT, the adoption was just 2-3 years, and most customers who had any kind of hardware that that had sensor or that could be sensor enabled, they wanted to get it done.
Yeah.
So I think being able to spot some of these technology changes and skill your people quickly, have the infrastructure and develop the mindset will be important. And I think the other thing we need to do is from having more of a project mindset to have more of a technical mindset, because you're not going to get these huge, most cases, you won't get these huge projects that can run over a 18, 24, 36 month cycle. Most customers are looking at working in a very agile manner, not just from a development standpoint, but go to market itself. They want to go with something, get initial feedback. They don't want to burn up millions of dollars and time and then go back, because competition is doing the same thing.
Yeah.
And so being able to work in a very agile manner with your customers, developing those execution and business models, again, will be important. And I think, we also need to start seeing how do we build more of replicable sales, either a platform-enabled sales, so that you can bolt some kind of platform to the services that you're providing, that you can add value and also get some non-linear stream of revenue and build stickiness. I think we'll have to start looking on these lines. Some of it we are doing, but we'll have to do more of it, I think. So I feel that, that we got a work cut out, but there are opportunities as well.
I think I like your point towards the opportunities. I think you stressed on that. I think it's mad how I think the merger and acquisition scene also is in play for a lot of Indian IT service providers who can look at these areas as well. I think we saw like I think OpenAI acquired Windsor for 3 billion, which was like massive. Yeah, and then Cursor got 900 million funding, and Apple also is looking at partnering with Anthropic to get it, VX Code. With the vibe coding thing, so trend is changing every day. Like Gen AI, then you have agentic AI, now this like vibe coding, and I don't know how it unfolds. I think very rightly put. So anything on the merger and acquisition side that you guys are looking from this perspective that you mentioned? Yeah,
sure. I think our approach to M&A has been a very strategic or focused one, right? Instead of looking at it purely as a revenue enhancer, we've tried to break it down into what are the white spaces or our focus areas, right? And they are on 3 or 4 dimensions. One is from a domain standpoint.
Correct.
There are some areas where you don't have as much capability or don't have any capability, and you think is promising in the market. So that's one.
Yeah.
The other one is technology. Right? There are changes taking place.
Yeah.
If you have a kind of a gap somewhere, that becomes another one. The third is on the center front, right? We have centers in a few places, but at one point we're looking at maybe something in East Europe, but not making it the core thing. And the fourth is customers. You always have a few customers that you want to acquire, and if you find an acquisition candidate that has those customers in the portfolio, it makes it more attractive. So we've looked at it from these 4 or 5, and the common theme across has been when evaluating companies to make sure that you evaluate them for culture and people fit, because you can manage anything, but you cannot take 2 cultures that are dissimilar and mash them together. You're asking for a disaster then, right? And so whenever we evaluate the company, one of the things that all of us do as a leadership is to just assess the leadership on the other side, and in the couple of sessions we have, try to get the essence of the company. Once we feel comfortable about that, then we start looking at the business aspects of it. Hey, does this fit the customer or the business? So if you see all the companies we've acquired so far, that has been a common thing. And therefore, when we do the integration, the challenges are much smaller. You're not spending too much time and losing either people or customers because of integration. We just want to avoid that. So if you look at PGS, it got us capability in the PIMCore space and the MDM space, right? Digital asset management space. SMI got us on healthcare and supply chain.
Got it.
Pure Software was on the banking, which was actually a little bit of a weak area for us, surprisingly, because for most of the Indian IT service company, that's one of the larger verticals. But for us, the business, as I said, just evolved. It was more for technology angle that we had taken. And Aureus had quite a lot of insurance capability.
Got it.
And so these were areas that we had identified as, white spaces to be addressed.
Got it.
And so each acquisition has allowed us to address a white space that we had.
Amazing. So, Joseph, I heard that you personally, were involved closely in this merger and acquisition deal for most of these companies. So, just curious, like, are you venturing into, generative AI or an agentic AI startup and companies? Are you watching them closely, or is there anything seen in the future acquisitions areas? Yeah.
So, the GBS team, it's led by our founding CTO, Sridhar Mantha. They're constantly looking at, which are the companies coming up in this space, right? And keeping track of, their strategy, their approach, both from capability building and GTM. So from that angle, we do have a set of customers. But I feel that, we have quite a bit of, given the fact that we started early, even agentic AI was something that came up 2 years back in a strategy note saying that in the trend section, and we had started, working on it because that was a natural progression of your Gen AI and your automation. How do you have agents sitting out there and, automate the whole process of what you're doing? And I feel we have good, solid capabilities. But if we do see any company out there and if it's addressing a gap that we have, we will not shy from thing. But I won't put it as front and center thing, saying I'm going to go look out for something.
Got it. At the core, I think you mentioned the culture of it also needs to match.
Absolutely, yeah.
That's beautiful.
Culture and even the valuation has to fit in, because I mean, one thing both Venkat and I clear off is that we won't overpay also, because if you overpay, you're actually doing a disservice to your investors as well. So you got to, you get it right every time.
Yeah.
There'll be a little deviation, a little bit more, a little bit less, but you can't overpay, right? Exorbitantly. That we would surely will not do.
So is customers asking for agentic AI services at this point in time, or what is the what do you say, conversations like? Yeah.
So I think we already have a few customers for whom we are developing agents, agentic AI agents, and looking at how do you fit it into their overall platform or their processes. Can be either one, right, on the platform or on the process. How do you automate that process? And even in in the coding space, customers are looking at building agentic agents to actually do part of the coding, and some of the tools already supported, but they're looking at how to do it specifically to their environment, code base. So a lot of interesting things happening and huge potential, right?
Yeah.
It can be quite disruptive, and again, I go back, opportunity also is there. But each without disruption, you don't have progress. So I think you shouldn't be scared of that.
Yeah. Amazing. I think you're the most optimistic person that I've met. So internally, like, how is your team, enjoying this entire vibe coding? Because now I think it eliminates that learning curve for getting and building things. So are you seeing any shift or change internally, in terms of reducing the team size, or allocating them to some other engagements? What is there any change because of these kind of advancement within the organization? Are you seeing any change?
So as I mentioned earlier, I think the change that we're seeing is in terms of customer expectation.
Got it.
They want to see the tangible improvement in productivity. That's a clear thing, because they need to reassure themselves, and most likely they will have to show it to their investors, PE firms, or public, whatever it is, that we are taking advantage and not leaving money on the table. But as I said earlier, the approach right now is to see how can we do more and do it at a faster pace. And I'm hoping and quite hopeful that will continue, because there are so many areas that all of our customers have to get done. Earlier, they used to push some things off and say, hey, we'll do it 12 months, 18 months, 24 months down the line. Now, if you have the opportunity that there is money and bandwidth available to get it done, and I think that's what, and if we can be a little, as an industry and as a company as well, if we can be a little proactive in finding out some of those areas that they could be working on and suggest to them, which is the approach that we are taking. Right? As part of the QBR, one of the things that we mandated is to show what are the value adds we did, and also to go back and suggest these are 2-3 things that you could be doing differently or additional, and hopefully, and hope that that will translate into projects or additional opportunities that can absorb this bandwidth that's being made available.
Amazing. So personally, are you vibe coding? Are you experimenting with any of these tools and building based on your experiences? Like, have you any?
See, I have not done, but my team has been doing it. And, and Sridhar, who heads our generative AI business unit, is extremely hands-on. Our CTO, Ritesh, also is extremely hands-on. Both of them sit. The minute some new tool comes, they start playing around with it. Because Sridhar sits right next to me in our Redmond office, and I can see, sometimes he'll just make some comments. And I think that's very positive, because if the senior leaders are being hands-on and keeping in touch with the newer technologies, it kind of percolates down the company and makes others also feel that, hey, why am I not doing this? Right?
Yeah, the vibe is real, like at Happiest Minds. Like, when you're implementing GenAI solution to your customers, what are some of the ROI metrics or things that they should keep in mind before implementing it? If you can take us through that.
Sure. I think I'll break it up into two. One is on the code automation side, right? There's a cost of the tool and the training involved, and the initial days, the learning curve involved. I think their customers are trying to see what is the improvement in terms of productivity, and you have to come up with some commonly acceptable parameters, user stories, or whatever it is, right? They're looking at velocity,
Yeah.
right? And they're looking at quality as well. Has
Wow.
it improved, right? So it's not just if I get this additional productivity, but if there are some issues that are getting introduced. So looking at these three from a code automation standpoint. I think when you get into the process standpoint and you're trying to include Gen AI, uh, it, there could be a revenue impact, there could be a cost impact, but in many cases, I think it's also employer customer experience impact.
Yeah.
Right? If you're let's say a field service engineer and you have an agentic AI that's assisting you and augmenting the work that you're doing, you may get some productivity benefits, but the end customer will see the problem being solved in a more structured manner,
Yeah.
and the chance of it getting solved quicker and in a better manner are more. So I think you have to also, if you take a, you shouldn't. What we suggest is don't look just at the quantitative metrics. Also look at some of the qualitative
Yeah.
benefits that you would get from adopting, because just looking at productivity is not the
Right
the
metric.
cost is not
Yeah.
the right approach. I think you should also look at how is it making people's lives better or the experience better.
That's very rightly put, Joseph. So, how excited are you about agentic AI? What are some of the early conversations you're having with customers, and how are you dividing them? Like, who are adopting them, who is not adopting them? How are you looking at entire agentic AI as a market, and what value add Happiest Mind is adding there?
Sure.
Yeah.
See, I think in the last, you had the whole Gen AI conversations that
Yep.
started a couple of years back. In the last year or so, we've started seeing customers look at, can we actually implement an agentic AI approach? Can we put in AI agents out there to either augment or do work that a human being was doing earlier? And uh, obviously, in many cases, it's in the initial stages. People are doing POCs, trying it out, seeing is it effective, is it giving the end result. And what you're seeing, there are some customers who decided that they're going to go ahead.
Wow.
Right? They've taken that plunge or that decision, and so they're going ahead with the implementation. It's a smaller percentage still, to be frank and
Yeah.
honest with you. But I do feel that you'll have more, and there are conversations going on with multiple customers. I think our ability to show the benefits and how it would work and how it can be implemented is going to be very key out here, especially the benefits. You can't go and apply it and get the benefits in all the use cases. So trying to understand which use cases make sense, similar to what you did on the Gen AI side as well, right?
Correct, yeah.
So there are some use cases that just didn't make sense.
Yeah.
Either the accuracy you'd get wouldn't be where it needs to be
Yeah.
for it to have the confidence and trust that you need,
Mhm.
or the cost involved training the model and doing things didn't make sense.
Yeah.
Right? So I think you need to figure out the right use cases and ensure that your execution approach shows the customer that this is feasible and it can be done.
Wow, that's something valuable. So again, coming back to vibe coding again, right? We were just talking earlier. So what are roles that Indian IT service providers or Happiest Minds can cater to the enterprise audience when it comes to vibe coding? I think we just spoke a while back, so if we could share it with the audience there.
Yeah. So I think what we've been doing is we're looking at how to come up with the entire approach from start to actual measurement, right?
Yeah.
And so the initial part of it is trying to figure out how to conceptualize with the customer, how they can use these tools.
Yeah.
And the next part is the execution, where you look at, based on some of the experiences that we've had, how do you go about implementing this, what to avoid.
Mhm.
In some cases, there could be some training or skills or different way of
Yeah.
doing things.
Yeah.
Educate them and to help implement.
Like prompt engineering.
Prompt
and things,
engineering,
yeah,
right? And then the last one is obviously measuring, and both, I think, from an internal perspective, the developer also has to see
Mhm.
what how it's really impacting
Yeah.
what they're able to deliver, and the customer also has to see what outcome they're getting out of it. So as long as you can do this whole chain, I think it makes adoption more easier.
More easier. That's amazing. So we touched upon agentic AI, vibe coding, and Gen AI solution also, right? These are some of the things. So again, I think coming back to the initial question, like what percentage of these are getting added in the revenue that you mentioned about 96%? Just do you have any numbers? If is that like
Sure. So right now, as I mentioned, around if I look at just Gen AI, right,
Yeah.
and agentic AI, I would say it's still in the
Early
initial
stage, yeah.
early stages. If you look at Gen AI, I would say that around 1.5 to 2 million is what we will do
Correct.
for last year. We're
Yeah.
looking at 5 million, but there's a lot of pull through on the AI side as well, right? Because we've tried to, as far as possible, keep Gen AI separate and by itself. If you take the broader AI, I think it would be closer to 10 to 15 million dollars
Wow.
in revenue, because seeing fair bit of adoption in this area. It's just accelerating, and I would give a lot of credit to Gen AI, because I
Wow.
think it made it brought so much of attention to the whole AI space,
Correct.
both from a customer perspective and in terms of investment on technologies and tools that is accelerated, and both enterprise and consumers are demanding products and services and offerings that have that can be enabled by AI.
AI. That's amazing. So there is no like when you look at other competitors in the West and all, right? So they have like segregated revenue from Gen AI. They call it AI washing is the term that is using. So at Happiest Minds, do you have any specific allocation, or does it come under say digital services only, or do you want to call it out saying that this much revenue is going to come from this? I know the earnings call is coming in a couple of days. So do you have that numbers, and should that change from the Indian IT perspective also, like calling out how much of this, given the trend of that industry, can it be a separate vertical itself and calling out like this much revenue was generated like from this
Sure.
segment?
So rather than calling it a vertical, what we do is we call it as a horizontal.
Correct.
If you look at our investor report,
Correct.
We do vertical, because this is not really a vertical, cuts across all verticals.
Correct.
So we give a vertical split across BFSI,
Understood.
retail, CPG, all of that, and we also give a split across the various digital foundations,
Correct.
cloud, analytics,
Analytics.
AI, IoT, security,
Okay.
and a couple of others.
Correct.
So analytics AI, we're already calling out separately, and we've been reporting it for the ever since we went
Correct.
public, and the GBS revenue gets included over there, Gen AI revenue, because it's all part of analytics and AI.
Correct.
But we also report it separately, so that
Wow.
we give a
Got
separate view, because it's a independent business unit, and
Correct.
since you're making the investment, I think it's appropriate that we give customers
Correct.
a view into how that business unit is doing.
Got it. And I hope you guys get more revenue from the Gen AI, agentic AI, and vibe coding. My wishes there. On the vision side, you guys have envisioned like 1 billion in 2031 revenue is what you're targeting. Like I'm confident that no one like Joseph would given the history of Happiest Minds, you've been from the initial days till now. So what is that strategy that you have? Like how will you achieve that? How will you get there? Have you guys got it figured out, or or that confidence, or the foundation? What is it that you driving you guys there? And achieving that. What if you guys overachieve that? I'm like I'm just being over optimism there.
It's always nice to overachieve. It's personally gratifying, and the market also rewards you.
Yeah.
We're keeping track of the market and progress on a regular basis, and making the adjustments required. I think some of the transformations that we've effected over the last 1.5 years will really allow us to, it was done keeping this $1 billion by 2031 in mind. And last year we created Gen AI. We did a verticalization, made investments in vertical heads or IG heads, and pulled out the NN and EEN sales as separate.
Wow.
And the reason we did that is to make sure that there's focus on NN sales, because once you get to a certain stage, you want to get larger deals, and it gets a little bit more specialized, getting new logos. At the same time, the existing BDMs, you don't want them distracted by, and I mean distracted in a good way, with lead generation, following up on leads, prospects, proposal. Rather, you want them to understand the customers better, deeper, and expand your presence out there.
Got
So I
it.
think that's something that we implemented last year. This year, we said we'll do the second part of the transformation of the company, starting with the whole, org restructuring that we
Yeah.
announced. There's a huge focus that we're putting on private equity owned companies. We worked with a few companies, but we didn't have, one person owning it. A very well thought out strategy. We're doing something similar with GCCs as well. We talked a little bit about it.
Yes.
Having a senior leader take ownership for the strategy and for execution. And the other area, which is linked to this whole NN and EN carve out, is high potential accounts.
Got
Right?
it.
We have quite a few accounts that are,
Yeah.
with customers that are 10, 20, $30 billion. We're doing $1 million or $2 million.
Yeah.
There's no reason why we shouldn't do much more, right? And
Yeah.
I think just this EEN client partner availability, having that vertical focus, which will allow us to get deeper into the customer's business,
Got it.
and having a focused strategy will help us. And I think all of these gives me the confidence that we should be able to hit our goal.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Just to again going back to the initial days, 2018. Let me come to 2018, right? So I think Shashi Kumar, right? He resigned as a co-CEO.
CEO of the company.
CEO of
Yeah.
So Shashi Kumar resigned as a CEO of the company. Then you guys didn't have any CEO till 2025 recent, and you are now the CEO of the company and co-chair. So what happened in that very interesting a company without a CEO? For what was going on? I mean, when I look back, when I was reading about it, and I was like, really, there was no CEO till now. Like Happiest Minds were just. I mean, what has happened?
Yeah.
Can you just ease my confusion in terms of what went from 2018 to 2025 without a CEO?
Sure.
Yeah.
So, when Sashi left, and this was a couple of years before IPO as well, and Ashok's always been a little innovative and experimentative, right? So at that point, just to foster more collaboration between the different business units and the corp functions, and also to ensure that there's, they say 4 heads is better than one, right?
Wow.
To make sure that we are able to get the learnings of a larger set of people, Ashok decided to create the executive board, which functioned as the CEO of the company.
Correct.
Right? And so the constituent of the executive board was Venkat was our MD and CFO. Me, I was running the product engineering services at that point of time. Ram Mohan, who runs IMSS, and Rajiv was responsible for the digital business services.
Correct.
So I think it kind of brought all of us together. It gave a little bit more appreciation for challenges on the other side. Also, the opportunities that were on the table that probably we were leaving, by not collaborating enough, and ensuring that all our experiences that we had from the past, we could pull them together. And we evolved our own way of working, weekly calls, and then ensuring that that we kept each other in the know, giving each other the space, and counseling each other where required. I think we're able to get to 2025 on this. But as we see the future, and in terms of succession planning, we do have to move into a point. And this again had been discussed with both between me and Ashok and with the board before the IPO. I became the vice chairman, and that I would be the successor as chairman of the company. And Ashok wanted to do it in a planned manner, right? So that's why we said we'll become chair and he's a chairman and mentor, and I'm the co-chairman.
Correct.
So I get a little time to work with him, and kind of I'll have that little bit of breathing space and learnings that I would get. And you can't really hand this over to a set of people.
Correct.
And that's why we thought this was the right time to, as part of the succession planning, to move back into a CEO. But having said that, we'll still continue having the executive board, and I would be the chair of the executive board, at least for the foreseeable future.
Correct.
And the style of working will continue being the same. That we'll reconstitute the executive board as we make some organizational changes based on the integration of pure software and Aureus.
Correct.
Once that's done, I think that executive board will continue running similar to what we've had.
Got
with a
it.
little bit more of oversight maybe from me.
Got it. That's amazing. So yeah, talking about Ashok Soota, right? Like he's amazing person himself. Like he's built multiple companies now and this age also is still building more. I don't know when he's stopping, but I wish like it should not stop. Again, inspirational person. So you worked with him very closely. So were there any arguments or kind of moments while running Happiest Minds? But you guys like understood so well. I mean, you guys literally like family now, like you know each other so well, and you built a very like fast growing Indian IT company there. I want to understand, like, were there any moments during those journeys when you look back, like, okay, this shouldn't have happened? Were there any moments of such sorts?
One thing with Ashok is he gives space to the people that he works with, right? So that is a really positive thing, and you can always go back to him when you need some guidance. As with any set of people, and if there were no difference of opinion, then it would have been a problem actually. So
Okay.
there were a few instances where there were difference of opinion, and we'd talk it out. And in some cases, Ashok would say, okay, go ahead and do it. In other cases, he'd say, I think this is how it should be done. What do you say?
Wow.
And you realize that, hey, this is right, because he comes with at least 25 years more of experience
Correct.
than I have, right? Seen much more, seen
Got
this
it.
whole industry evolve from,
Got it.
being more government-driven economy to a market economy, right? Because he started his career in the 70s. So, it's always been kind of a give and take the few times when we've had a difference in view.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's very healthy actually, right?
Wow.
Even with my team, I really encourage diversity of thoughts and people challenging. And end of the day, one of us is going to prevail, and then everybody has to come together and make sure that you go in the same direction. So till you come to that point, you have difference of opinion and you can argue it out and whatever. But once you've decided, then you move together and make sure that it's successful.
Wow, that's a thank you for sharing that. And any first moments like during your say Mindtree days when you decided, okay, like you're gonna start Happiest Minds. What was the first conversation you had with Ashok Soota, or like what did he call, and how did you were you ready for this? Like, what was going on there?
So, just before Ashok left, he had come down to Seattle because he was going and meeting a few of the customers to just bid them farewell and to thank them. So he came down to Seattle, and I was his designated chauffeur, taking him around for some of the. Because when I used to come down, I used to take him for meetings out there. And so we just chatted and asked him, why are you doing this? And he said, I want to leave my legacy clearly. And I think he's a little bit like Warren Buffett, right? He just has to be active and he has to keep doing things. And he's got multiple thoughts in his mind all the time. So a week after he launched, not even a week, a few days after he launched Happiest Minds, Vijay reached out to me. So I got an inkling. Vijay is his executive assistant. And then I got on a call with Ashok, and he kind of said, hey, do you want to do this? We're going to build a digital native company. So all new technologies, new areas. I told him, give me a week's time, because I was doing quite well at Mindtree, and it was a good company, absolutely no doubt about it. Then I thought about it and said, where will you get the opportunity to build something out of nothing, right?
Wow.
The sense of accomplishment, achievement is huge, right? When you start from, I was in Aztecsoft in its very, very early days, but it was $1 million company when I joined them. So I saw the journey, but I was never right at the start. Right? And I was a cog in the wheel at that point of time. Right? I had just 4 or 5 years of experience, but that was also a fantastic experience. And then the learning involved. You're working on something totally new with a new set of people. So I thought it would be and with Ashok, right? Working up front close with them. So I thought the learning experience, the sense of achievement, all of that looked too interesting. Spoke to a couple of my close friends from business school, and they were encouraging. I spoke to the CTO of Aztecsoft, Govi, who has been kind of my mentor. It's a little odd that I'm a business guy, but my mentor is a CTO. And he's told me, don't even think about it. Right? You'll never get an opportunity to learn from. He said, the only reason you should do it. If leaving out others
Yeah.
is that you'll get to learn from Ashok. So I think you should just go do it blindly. And then I told yes to Ashok, and after that, rest is
history.
the history, the way it's evolved.
Amazing. So let me ask that question a little different. What if Happiest Mind didn't happen? You would have made a different choice. Like, who would Joseph be without Happiest Minds?
See, I think I'd have stayed with Mindtree for at least some time, if not for much longer time, because I had the senior management out there had a very good impression. I had developed a good reputation as somebody who delivers results. I liked a lot of the people that I was working with, the team that I had out there, the Microsoft business unit, and even the extended product engineering services team. Many of them were from Aztec Soft, so I knew them. Some of them joined me or came along with me to Happiest Minds. So I knew the people, I liked the culture. So I think I would have stayed there for some more time, and I think I would have landed up, growing there and being a P&L head and a head of a business unit in some other company.
Glad you didn't.
I can't say which company, but I'm very, very happy I made this decision because just when I look back, the sense of achievement, right? That in 14 years, what we've been able to achieve and what we will achieve in the next by 2031 and beyond is the sense of achievement and fulfillment is huge. So I wouldn't trade this for anything in the world.
That's beautifully put. Thank you for sharing that, Joseph. And just a quick question to the viewers watching there. So I want to know, Joseph, like if you had to give yourself younger, let's go back in time. Say you are like 24-year-old Joseph. From now, based on your experience that you all had, what advice would you give to that 24-year-old Joseph?
I think the biggest advice I would give is that in business school, I should have focused more on HR and organizational behavior. Because all of us are so taken in by your quant stuff and financial and all of these things because they look much more attractive and maybe cerebrally appealing. But what you really use a lot is you're working with people at the end of whichever industry you're in, but more so in the industry I'm in. But if you get into financial services or banking, again, interacting with people, working with either customers or employees, and just understanding what makes them tick. How do you collaborate? How do you work with them? I think I've learned a few things along the way, but I feel that I should have probably focused more when I was there and I had the opportunity to do that.
Amazing. Thanks for sharing that. That's very valuable. Adding to that, from the cultural and the hiring part, right? Happiest Minds, like, so what is the team size now? Is it 5,000 plus or
6,500?
6,500. Okay, sorry, I was like still in the startup days. 6,500 and growing.
Yes.
So and how many people are you adding? Like, what is your hiring strategy? Are you hiring freshers or what is it looking like?
So, till a year and a half back, we were going to campus regularly and trying to get around 5 to 10% of our workforce from campuses. And the reason I believe it's required more than leave out the cost and all those elements. I just believe they bring a lot of energy, a different way of thinking and doing things to the organization. And you need to have some people that grow up the ladder, seeped in the company's culture. And you can do that only when you bring them in at the ground level.
Correct.
Right? And so we've been doing that. Last year, we took a pause because we just saw the market conditions and said, when required, we will go out and we'll pick up people. We had a few people that we had made the offers to, and we honored those offers and brought them on board. So right now, what we've been doing is making our hiring more focused towards the areas of need rather than, earlier, let's say 2 years back when it was more broad-based and saying, based more on, hey, this is the plan that we put in place. So we've become much more agile to ensure that the skills and the areas where we see the demand coming up, we address those on a priority basis just to ensure revenue happens. Attention is given to the right areas at the same time you have to manage your cost in this environment, and you shouldn't get a little too ahead of yourself. I think that's it's a fiduciary responsibility.
Amazing. And yeah, talking about culture, very interesting that you brought it up. I just got to know, like, Happiest Minds measures also, like, happiness metrics also, like you have as a part of, like, how many people are happy in the organization. And the numbers were like astonishing. I think 97, 98 people said they love working at Happiest Minds. And also, like, 98 people refer, like, people to join to Happiest Minds. So what is this culture that you guys have built? It's so strong. Like 98, 97, why is everybody happy in your company? Like, are they not sad any moment? Like,
see, I think the question we ask is, are you happier out here in Happiest Minds than you were earlier?
Got it.
And, I want to share a couple of things. You talked about the Happiness People survey.
Yeah.
So once we finished the mission, vision, value, and, talking about, happiest people, happiest customers as the mission of the company, we said, how do we keep ourselves true? Because the second element of our vision, original vision, was on the happiness theme. And we set ourselves goals for both people happiness and customer happiness. And we said we'll do a survey every year. And we very deliberately didn't call it a customer satisfaction survey. We said we'll call it customer happiness.
Right? Wow.
And so we came up, again, Sharon coordinated this. We came up with what are the attributes we want to capture on the happiness people happiness survey, and came up with 12 questions, I think, which kind of captured the sentiment. The last question was, are you happier here than you were earlier?
Got it.
And I think just doing that, and the mission, vision, values, and our mindfulness training, our mandatory trainings, everybody has to go through that.
Got it.
So you put it front and center, let people know that, that these are very core to the company's values, reflect it in a lot of your policies and in the behavior, ensure that the leaders walk the talk. It's always very important, You can't expect something of the rest of the team and you do something very different. And I think all of this, which we've done over a period of time, has allowed us to build this culture.
Amazing. So I was just reading this for the audience. So the happiness evangelist, right? So that person would be involved in curating, like, say, your yoga, meditation, different activities, and all employees are part of. So those are in place, is what you're saying, right? Like, okay.
You don't force anybody. See, the other thing is, you can't force anybody to be happy. You can only create the environment, and like in the Matrix, it says, you show you the path, right?
Show you the
but
path.
You have to walk the path. I think you can talk to people about why it's important, how it helps them, and you can create the environment, where they can practice it. And that's what I think we've tried to do through multiple forums, policies, benefits.
Got it. So
health is what we believe, again, is that a happy mind needs a healthy body.
Correct.
So wellness is a huge part of, that's why that yoga and other things that we talked about, a lot of the benefits that we have, they're oriented towards in that direction, to just promote and make sure that, that people look at wellness and take up wellness, and see that it's a very important aspect of the overall happiness culture.
So it's like, I think once it becomes a habit, then it translates to, like sound body, sound mind.
Absolutely.
Okay, that's beautiful. Yeah. I think, have you come across any other companies like doing some similar things in your space industry, or you guys are the only ones, like, measuring this and also implementing it? They do it as a CSR activity, or just like an add-on, but this is coming in the culture itself, like on a day-to-day basis. So have you come across any other company? Because I haven't.
The only other company that had a happiness evangelist was Zappos. It's the company that sells shoes, right?
Yeah.
I think they got acquired by Amazon or somebody.
Yeah.
But they used to have a happiness evangelist, but outside of that, have not seen anybody else. Now Google again does quite a few things on the happiness theme.
Correct.
And they have internal folks who do training on mindfulness, and but outside of that, I haven't seen anybody who's doing happiness people survey and who has a happiness. I don't think Zappos also has it anymore.
No, because I was seeing, like, just looking at all the earnings call, I was bored of, okay, everybody's talking about revenue, everybody's talking about profit, everybody's talking about a lot of these metrics, okay, revenue, profit, okay, their targets, all of that, right? And I'm like, okay, Happiest Mind has, like, okay, even a happiness as a metric, like, people are also happy. That is also like kind of measure that is there in the industry. Very unique. So thanks for that. I mean, I think Joseph, that said, I think we had a brief chat about right from Happiest Minds inception to understanding how you guys have navigated the different challenges. And I'm really glad this conversation happened. I specifically learned a lot from this conversation, and I'm going to journal this, and I hope the stories also come out. How was your experience, Joseph?
I really enjoyed the questions. It was quite wide-ranging and varied, and times made me think a little bit, quite a bit. So thanks a lot, Rajiv.
Hey,
it was an enjoyable conversation.
Yeah, thank you so much.